Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be sharing my much-loved Mona Vanna Altered Book Journal. Mona Vanna is an extremely old book, probably not the greatest quality book originally, but old nonetheless and still in pretty good condition. Harper Brothers, 1903, and as you can see, the pages are cut a little bit unevenly, but the quality of the paper is rather thick, and one would expect it to crack and snap when they're turned, but I've been very lucky thus far, and they have not been. So, Mona Vanna, as you can see, has a lot of collage added to it, but for some reason, it has not decided to expand, even though I have glued my pages together to give them extra bulk to be able to take whatever I add to them. So, another book, another oldie but goodie, and I'm never cease to be amazed about the way this book just seems to almost be therapy for me. Working in this book is just joy. I found this book in Fernandina Beach, Florida, in an antique mall, and I believe I paid $2 for it. That's part of the fun, you know, the trolling in malls and finding goodies in good condition. I began this book in November 16, and at that point I was going to try to stay in browns and sepia tones, and for a while I did do that, but my muse just required that some color was added, and I branched out as I went along, as you will see. This is Winsor Newton iridescent medium added on top of the flower, 2 pages glued together. And another thing that I wanted to share with you, after these pages were glued together, I used clear gesso on them as my base. And they are quite gritty, quite sandy. It took me to meet Dee Dee Willingham and her wonderful YouTube videos to find out that there is a new product now that allows you to use clear gesso as your sealer, and it's by Finnabair, an Art Basics, and no grit. So many of the pages at the beginning of the book, until my discovery, thanks to Dee Dee, are rather gritty. My little girl and some more of the iridescent. Coming up to the holidays last year, some collage bits added and some stenciling in the background. The beginning of December last year, I was interested here in leaving some negative space, which I filled just with background, almost a wallpaper effect on this one. And this is some tape used on wallboard. So here we go. 'Tis the season last year. This was my Christmas effort, and I wanted to do another one this year in the same realm, and I was able to do that. Great fun. Again, trying to maintain that sepia effect of colors. A little bit of red here from the Christmas color, but a great deal of enjoyment. Let me go and see if there's anything hiding in here. No. Alrighty. I'm believing, yes, this was a very tip of the end of last year. I think I'd better put my waxed paper back. Very end of last year, I added some of my needlepoint practice bits. I used needlepoint canvas, stamped on these names, because in truth, this used to be the sort of art that I pursued for, I would say, the better part of 40 years or 30 years, until I was lucky enough to discover mixed media. And so these are in my Mona Vanna book because they are part of a memory for me. I left the entire page a collage on this one just because I thought that it showed off this piece, this strip of work. This piece is has some dots behind it, and you can see how it would thicken up this double, 2 pages glued together, and then the dots and another rather heavy piece of collage, and you'll notice the book is behaving itself. I don't know how long it is going to, so I have been using this, not really because I have to, but because I think as time goes along, I will be needing it, and I will certainly be continuing in Mona Vanna in the year to come, because I'm really not able to stop when it comes to Mona Vanna. She calls me in some way that I'm not going to question. I'm just going to go and enjoy her. Alrighty, here we have the beginning of 2017. Here is a piece of canvas paper that I did some stitching on in a video, and there again it is raised and not causing too much problem. 2 sheets together, a hand-drawn flower, and I believe for this flower I used I had a something to lead me in this direction. In other words, this is not a total original on my part. This was something that I used to give me an idea of this flower. And I, of course, first put it down in pencil, and then used my Signo Uniball Signos and some fine collage bits here. Much added to this page. And this is obviously watercolor, some stencils and stamps. Very much fun. I'm thinking of doing a little bit more of this year, only because I do not want to lose my skills, and I enjoy doing this. So I probably occasionally will be adding this sort of collage to my pieces in the new year. So that's the beginning of this year's work. More collage, but this is napkins. Napkins applied with my Yoo-Hoo glue stick. So you'll notice how nice and flat they have attached themselves to this paper. On top of that, I can feel, when touching, that I used some gouache and a little bit of light soft pastel and a sealer on top of it. And it almost left a, what word can I use? I think almost a velvety effect. It almost feels like it. So this was an enjoyable, pleasant shock to get a napkin to end up looking like this. On this page, I used an add-on. This page, of course, was cut before I glued it to the back one. This is acrylic paint. I added some stenciling, and I tried, in this case, to keep a lot of the print of the book itself uncovered so that it was able to see it more clearly. And I'm going to remember as I go through this book to try to do this, because I seem to like to see the print a little bit darker, so that has a little bit more oomph and becomes really an assertive part of what's happening on the page. This, as I never cease to be amazed, is a lot to add to an old book, and it seems to be doing very nicely right around that page. My Hidden Girl, collage bits, stenciling, a girl that I sketched in and worked with. I spread her out, got back to a little bit of my, I do believe on this one, I did not use the Winsor & Newton iridescent medium. On this one, I believe I used my Target paint, my Shimmer Egg, to bring out just that little bit of shine on her dress and wings. This one, stencil, yes, I can feel it. There is some collage underneath this, and on top of that, my water-soluble oil pastels, rubbed in thickly and left on here thickly. And it's probably dried so well, because this was done in April, that it is not lifting too much, but that's why I have added the piece of waxed paper. I'm a great believer, I'm old-fashioned, and I'm a great believer in waxed paper to solve problems like this. Another experiment in an old book, and it is really remarkable the amount of wear and tear that old paper seems to be able to take. Maybe it is helped along by the fact that there are two sheets glued together, and they started out to be, and they are, rather heavy pieces of paper. As I said, the quality of the book was not the greatest in 1903. Another one of my practice little girls, and I wanted to try doing some buildings and some sky. My very, very most famous color for sky that I have discovered, and it is probably one of those things that if the house was on fire, I might grab this tube of paint, because this makes the most wonderful sky color. It's a folk art, and it is called Baby Blue. If you're able to get some of it, do not hesitate, because it works wonders. And then when you use the Baby Blue, and you can put either an off-white or a white, and sometimes I actually make my clouds, I use my Buttercream by Ceramcoat as a wonderful combination for making a skies. I was really rather tickled with this little girl. When I look at her closely and I come back to visit her now, I realize that she's got a tiny eye, but that's all right because I love her. She's mine. I went through my blue abstract phase. I had a blue abstract in my antique ledger, and here it seems to have come out again in Mona Vanna. Very different, many layers, stencil, different layers, different thicknesses of paper in the collage bits. And here, using layering dark colors underneath to begin with, and brayering back my dark background colors before I applied more and more layers. Started to enjoy playing with some of my pen work on this one. The sky was the limit, and this was my blue period, I guess, abstracts. Now this one was another one of my feats of, I don't know what is going to happen here, but it's going to happen, and it's going to happen a lot of it, and it's going to be vibrant. So, collage, heavy, quality paper, a piece of my old jelly plate paper from 2 or 3 years ago, a bit of collage paper here, a piece of my original, a stripe of my original work of my own from way back when I was just learning to do mixed media. So I have quite a combination on this page. I just kind of put the kitchen sink here and had fun, and I have to say I'm rather happy with this, only because a lot of this is brings up memories. This jelly printing, which I'm going to do more of. As I said, I'm going to keep looking right back up there at that box with the plate in it, and it's even labeled jelly plates, so I have no excuse not to, do I? So that was in June, and now I decided I ought to try getting back to my original plan. I had no plan when I began this one in July, but I wanted to try some new things. I always like to try doing that, and on this page I wanted to try 2 things. I wanted to try adding these metal embellishments in the corners, and I wanted to do some embossing. So I dug about in my stash until I found my embossing powder, and this is the result. These circles are from my learning phase in mixed media from probably 3 years ago. So down they went. These are cutouts from this sheet also. Then I used my go-to background stencil. Another stencil here, and gold embossing powder and these flowers embossed. What fun this was to do. And I'm so tickled with the effect of that gold embossing powder. Isn't it pretty? Here again, double pages, thick old paper with metal added to it, thick mixed media thick paper on these circles and leaves, and here again, not such a bad result. Oh, I remember finding, in August, I remember finding this little tidbit of my stitchery practice, and I decided to use these colors to create a page, and I dug deep into my stash and found these pages and added the collage bits. But first, I did a lot of stenciling and underneath them so that the collage went on afterwards instead of the other way around, which is the way it usually works with me, but this order reverse was fun doing. And then I tucked this piece of needlepoint canvas as a focal over here. I edged it a little bit in StazOn and added a little bit of, just a tiny bit of pen work on this one. And so different, so out of the Carol norm, and yet great fun doing. I'm noticing also that at this point I have found out about this, and these pages do not feel like fine sandpaper. And these would be the two thicknesses, and this a single sheet. As you can see, it's rather heavy weight paper. And then I had this piece of collage tucked in my stash and decided to see what would happen bringing out some gilding on her and some odd but pretty bits of collage over here. And this is what came surrounding her with prettiness. I've skipped a few pages, and now my Christmas piece for this year, quite different from last year's, but the Christmas tree on this side and some presents underneath. A year passing in my very much loved journal. And then I realized that I started to go backwards because I want to try to be sure that the book does not get out of hand and get too fat, because I'm not a great fan of those heavily fat books. But this girl was, in October, this came from some papers that I ordered from Christy Sobolewski. These are her girls, and I had the greatest fun painting her, embellishing her face, and back I came to my much-loved shimmer egg, and just a very minimal background. I added this little bit of silk ribbon just to bring out the little bit of pink that's in her hair and her lips and in the center of this flower. And I have a nice group of pages waiting for me for 2018. But I have enjoyed, I guess, the personal joy of having a Christmas picture from 1 year ago, while I was still quite involved in the concept of sepia, and 1 year later, exploring adding color, and generally loving this journal. And this journal is going to give me some more time because there are more pages waiting for fun. If you have enjoyed my sharing of this Mona Vanna altered book with you, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share with a friend, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. Mona Vanna and I will be back working in this journal in the new year. Bye now.